Welcome, friends, to episode 100 of The Company Show. Well, technically, this started out as the Business Podcast Blueprint Show, but it's one RSS feed, so it counts. 100 episodes is a pretty major accomplishment, and as we've approached this milestone, I've been reflecting on all of the different ways that having a podcast has changed my business. I'm Megan Doherty, and this is The Company Show, where we always take a relentlessly practical approach to business podcasting. And today I want to talk about what having a podcast has really done for One Stone Creative. We started the show right around the time we developed the Business Podcast Blueprints, hence the original name. And to be completely honest, we did it originally because I ran out of excuses for why a podcast production agency didn't have a show of their own. I was apprehensive, despite having a solid strategy and a truly impeccable team behind me. See, I'm a behind-the-scenes person. I thrive outside of the spotlight, and being a podcast host was never one of my life's ambitions. I like working on other people's projects, usually more than I like working on my own. It's one of the reasons I and the rest of the introverts at One Stone Creative are so good at doing what we do. We love other people's work and making it excellent. But as I tell people all of the time, podcasting is awesome for introverts. Just how awesome is something that I knew in theory before I started the show, but now I know it in practice. The Company Show has been a vehicle for so much for me personally and for my business. I've met amazing friends, had opportunities that I couldn't have imagined otherwise, and I'm very sure that without it, the Podcasting for Business conference, which is going on right now as you're listening to this, if you're listening on release day, it wouldn't have existed. The first year's lineup was composed almost entirely of podcast guests, and I had that kind of relationship with them because they'd been on my show. The podcast was also always our testing ground. We released different seasons in different formats and at different cadences to learn about what works, and so that we could communicate with our clients more effectively about what it really means and what it feels like to do a season versus a weekly or a bi-weekly ongoing show. And now that we're at episode 100, it's time for another change. Several, actually. We're taking a hiatus from new episodes for a few months to reimagine the show and decide how we want it to continue, or if it served its function and lived out its useful existence. Not every podcast is meant to last forever, and there's something else going on that's going to make an impact about our decision on the future of the Company Show. We're starting something new. A new podcast with a brand spanking new RSS feed, which we're going to be releasing early in the new year. It's going to be called the Business Podcast Spotlight, and it'll be a short, weekly or more show looking at the different ways that different businesses are using podcasts as a channel for marketing and business development. These are going to be short, focused episodes examining strategy, audience, and outcomes for existing shows and shows that are still in the planning stages, and always with a focus on what can be improved even more to podcast for even better business outcomes. Of course, we're going to be following up with the podcasters that we talk to in later episodes so we can see in real time how these kind of strategic thinking makes an impact on podcasting and on business. So if you're doing something interesting with the podcast or plan to in the future, then I want to talk to you. Head over to podcastingforbusiness.com/spotlight app and tell me more about your show. The link will be in the notes. I'm excited about this new project for itself. It's going to be a good podcast. I can't wait to share it with you. We're already recording episodes for it. And I'm also excited about what it might inspire for the Company Show and what this podcast might become in the future. And getting towards the end of this episode and the end of this phase of life of the Company Show, I'm also grateful. I'm grateful to the wonderful guests that I've had here over the years, to the team at One Stone Creative who has made every episode look and sound amazing. And I'm grateful to you who is listening, who has been the reason that we've done it all and who's always the top of our mind when we're creating and releasing this content. So thank you. As always, I've been your host, Megan Doherty, and this show was produced by the team at One Stone Creative. Wherever I and the rest of the team see you next, whether it's here on the Company Show or in the Business Podcast Spotlight or somewhere else, I look forward to it. Until then,